Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my second attempt of doing a Metal Gear Solid walkthrough. My first attempt, me and Razorborn tried to do it together, and the video got like not shut down, but just kind of like give us a warning because it had copyright infringement or something. I'm guessing because Konami doesn't like people doing their game. I don't know, but I talked to Konami directly. Well, not really directly. I went to their Facebook, but they said they don't mind people doing walkthroughs of their games. So I guess I'm just going to put the terms of use and I'm just going to talk to YouTube or something. But they said they don't mind people doing it, so I'm going to try to do Metal Gear Solid 3 again. Now, I will try to do every Metal Gear game and the story. And that is because I firmly believe that Metal Gear Solid has the best story of any game ever made. Metal Gear Solid is my favorite series. And Metal Gear Solid 3 is my favorite game of this series, so I guess you could say Metal Gear Solid 3 was one of my favorite games. Now the reason I'm starting with Metal Gear Solid 3, if you're a Metal Gear fan, you would know why. But if you're not, it's because Metal Gear Solid 3, even though it's technically it's Metal Gear Solid 3, but technically it's like the 5th one made, and actually it's the first one in the story. Don't ask, I'm not gonna get into it. But anyways, I'm doing Metal Gear Solid 3 because it's the first one in the story, and I want to follow the story. I am going to be doing the 8-bit Metal Gears, which is Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, I believe. Even I'm not too excited about that because that game has a ridiculous amount of backtracking, but I really want to do the whole story. Also, I'm going to put I like Metal Gear Solid 3. I'm not really sure how many differences there are between those, but whatever. But, also, I will not be doing portable ops because of the sheer fact that I can't do portable ops on my PS3. I'm playing these games. Hold on.
After the end of World War II, the world was split into two, East and West. This marked the beginning of the era called the Cold War.
What was I saying? Metal Gear 2. Dang it, I forgot. Oh yeah, I'm playing these games on the Metal Gear Solid HD pack, which brings Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. That game in itself brings Metal Gear Solid 2. Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. So technically this whole pack brings 5 games into it. It also brings Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of the Patriots, and it brings Metal Gear Peace Walker. The one it doesn't bring is Portable Ops, which is why I can't do it. And I already own Metal Gear Solid, so that's not a problem.
Approaching Soviet airspace.
What you will notice about the HD pack is that obviously, because it's an HD, the graphics look sharper than the original game. And the colors are brighter, and you can differentiate, you know, there's sometimes in the game where I couldn't differentiate what was Snake, what was the floor, and what was the wall. But in this game just looks a lot prettier. However, because it's an HD, it doesn't mean that it has better graphics. So, if something in the original game had really flat graphics or pixelated graphics, in this game it's going to be a lot more visible. So it's going to look even worse. But that doesn't happen too often. Anyways, I'm going to shut up now and only comment on the cutscenes.
Does this panty waste know what he's doing?
By far the lamest insult I've ever heard. That's counting the insults I've heard when I was 5.
10 minutes to drop off.
Hey,
Duke.
are you deaf?
He said put out the cigar and put on your mask.
Snake's too badass for that shit. I don't really think that was necessary, but okay. Metal Gear has a way of dramatizing little things.
Depressurization complete.
Checking oxygen supply.
6 minutes to drop off. Opening rear hatch.
May the badass music begin. Notice this helmet says Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater. That only happens if you pick I like Metal Gear Solid 3. Otherwise, I think it would say US Army or something. Henry Gregerson Williams is the man that makes most of the Metal Gear Solid music in each game. And he does a fantastic job. I love his music. Before I got into Metal Gear music, I used to listen to metal. And this man got me into orchestrated music.
Move to the rear.
Activate bailout model.
This is one for the history books. The world's first Halo.
High altitude, low opening, Halo jump.
10 seconds to drop.
And I love that Metal Gear plays with history and tries to say that Snake was actually the first man to do a Halo jump.
Prepare for drop-off. Countdown.
If anything, I don't think a Halo jump was performed the first time by one man. I think it was performed by a team.
Spread your wings
And fly. God be with you.
Hold on, guys. By the way, I heard the reason he spins like that is so all the cold air doesn't hit him in one spot. I'm not sure if that's a fact or just an opinion, but I think it kind of makes sense.
Jack, I've got some important news. The head of the CIA has finally given us the green light for the virtuous mission.
Virtual mission.
No, the virtuous mission. The future of our Fox unit depends on it. If it succeeds, we'll be officially organized into a unit.
Virtuous mission.
Why does Nick have to question everything?
Don't get cocky, this isn't a training.
Right. So what exactly is this wonderful mission?
Once again, I'm sorry if you hear my dogs in the background.
About 2 years ago, a certain Soviet scientist requested asylum in the West through one of our moles. His name is Nikolai Stepanovich Sokolov. He's head of the OKB 754 Design Bureau, one of the Soviets' top-secret weapon research facilities, and the East's foremost expert on weapons development.
Sokolov. Isn't he that famous rocket scientist?
The very same. On April the 12th, 1961, the Soviets achieved the first manned spaceflight in history.
That guy kind of looked like Sokolov.
There was no God.
Well spoken. The rocket that carried Yuri Gagarin to orbit was the A-1, known as the Vostok rocket. Sokolov is said to be the man most responsible for the multi-engine cluster used in that rocket. After Gagarin's flight, Sokolov left rocket development to become the head of the newly established Design Bureau.
From a lowly technician to head of a design bureau, that's quite a success story. So why do you want to defect?
It seems he'd become afraid of his own creations.
Afraid.
Call it a crisis of conscience.
And for that, he left his country and his family behind and went over the fence?
Not exactly. One of his conditions was that his family was also to be taken safely to the west. He used a mole to get the family out first.
Wonder how much going through that fence must have hurt.
The Berlin Wall shortly afterwards. I was the one who conducted the operation.
The security on the eastern side was still full of holes back then. Then what?
We got Sokolov over in one piece, but the whole ordeal had left him exhausted. And we checked him into a hospital in West Berlin. It took him 2 weeks and more than 600 miles to get from the research facility in the Soviet Union to Berlin. He was in no condition to say anything coherent. It was only a week later that we had something much bigger on our hands.
You know what? I didn't even finish explaining why all my videos were deleted, did I?
October the 16th.
I don't want to ramble in the middle of a cutscene, so I'll say it later, and I hope I remember.
The Soviets were in the process of deploying intermediate-range ballistic missiles in Cuba. The president demanded that the Soviets dismantle and remove the missiles. At the same time, he announced a naval blockade to prevent further missile shipments from reaching Cuba. But the Soviets didn't back down, instead placing their armed forces on secondary alert. Soviet transport ships carrying missiles continued on course towards Cuba. US and Soviet forces went on alert for an all-out nuclear war. Frantic negotiations were conducted with the UN's Emergency Security Council and unofficial channels to end the hair-trigger standoff. Finally, on October 28th, the Soviet Union agreed to remove its missiles from Cuba. And so the world avoided a nuclear holocaust. But in order to get the Soviets to pull their missiles out, we had to make a deal.
You mean the one where the U.S. agreed to remove its IRBMs from Turkey?
No. The Jupiter IRBMs deployed in Turkey were obsolete. We were going to get rid of them anyway. They had no strategic value whatsoever.
Here we go. Metal Gear does this a lot. They like to stay within history while playing with history at the same time. I really like that, actually.
So what did the Russians really want?
Sokolov. They wanted us to return
Sokolov.
You mean the Soviets pulled out of Cuba just to get their hands on Sokolov?
That's right.
What the hell was he working on?
At the time, we had no idea. We were running out of time. It was either give up Sokolov or risk full-scale nuclear war. In the end, we had no choice. President Kennedy gave in to Khrushchev's demand. The next day, I got Sokolov out of the hospital, handed him over to agents on the eastern side. Sokolov kept on screaming, "Save me," until he disappeared from my sight.
Man, that's gotta suck.
Then a month ago, we received some new information from one of our moles.
About Sokolov?
Yes. He was taken back to the research facility and forced to continue working on the weapon in question under KGB supervision. What's more, it's on the verge of completion.
So what kind of weapon is it? Something to do with space rockets?
No, it's missiles.
Same technology.
I guess you're right. We don't know the details, but it appears to be a new kind of nuclear device. For half a year now, the Soviets have been conducting frequent nuclear tests in Semipalatinsk.
Something to do with the weapon, I assume.
We're talking about a secret weapon so big that Khrushchev is ready to pull out of Cuba to get it back.
Is Sokolov still in the facility?
No. According to our intelligence, he's in Selino-Yarsk, a place in the mountains about 3 miles to the west that's known as the Virgin Cliffs.
The Virgin Cliffs. Nice name for a virtuous mission.
They moved him there just recently.
Why?
Apparently, they're conducting a field test of the weapon. It's our best chance to get him back. This mission would never have been possible if he was still in the research facility. This is our last chance. Sokolov must have known that too when he contacted us.
Listen up, Jack. Your mission is to infiltrate Selino-Yarsk in the
Metal Gear Solid 3, I believe, was the first game in the Metal Gear series to implement the whole pressing R1 button to see things from Snake's perspective.
If we don't get Sokolov back before that weapon is complete, we'll be facing
Thanks
a
to that
major
mechanic, we
crisis.
realized that Snake is a complete
Clock
perv.
is ticking. Once we've confirmed the rescue of Sokolov,
My
stand by
friend
for
in the
recovery.
Air Force told me that the
Recovery balloon
reason
will
the
be
parachute
dropped
has so many holes in it,
Helium
which is
will
something
be
a lot of
pumped into
people
the balloon to inflate it.
wonders,
The process takes
including
about 20
me,
minutes.
is to
Once it's complete, the
to
gunship
make it
sample will
so
latch onto the
even
balloon
though
and pull it up.
he doesn't fall as fast, he still falls at a pretty good speed.
I'm familiar with the theory.
That way he can get to his point, his destination, I guess,
Combat proof.
faster without missing where he has to go.
Do you think Sokolov is up to it?
What I don't understand is why the holes
Shock will
look
be
so
less than
random,
during
like somebody
parachute
took a knife and
jump,
started
the
cutting
arm
it.
can handle up to 500 pounds.
So you're planning on going over the border in a single combat talent?
She's equipped with 2 6-barrel 20mm Vulcan cannons, as well as 2 40mm machine guns.
Goiung!
Sounds like she could hold her own against a battalion of tanks.
Even with the fuel in the reserve tank, we're facing a 4-hour time limit. If all goes well, it shouldn't take more than a few hours.
Home in time for dinner.
But if anything goes wrong,
You'll be eating dinner, breakfast.
and all the rest of your meals in the jungle.
Not sure why they nodded their head there, like they were planning on something. I don't know. It was kind of it always seemed weird to me. But nothing in the end revealed that, you know, they were planning on something to happen. So I don't know. Oh, sorry about that. Control was shaking. Over dramatized entrance. Even though I believe just about every game Snake comes in a way over dramatized way. So Razormo just texted me. Apparently, somebody just bumped into his car in a stoplight.
Do you copy? You're already in
Just letting you guys know that.
Somebody might be listening in. From here on out, we'll be using code names to refer to each other. Your code name for this mission will be Naked Snake. I'll be referring to you as Snake from now on. You're not to mention your real name.
Snake?
Well, you don't like snakes?
What do you mean?
You've eaten one before, haven't you?
In survival training.
I'm glad to hear that.
I don't know if I'd ever order one at a restaurant.
Be careful, you might not have a choice.
What about you, Major?
For some reason, I feel like a snake wouldn't taste too bad.
Let's see.
I'd be willing to try one.
I'll be Tom. Call me Major Tom.
Is that weird?
This will be a sneaking mission. You must not be seen by the enemy. You must leave no trace of your presence. Is that clear? This kind of infiltration is the Fox unit's speciality. In other words, weapons and equipment are procured on site. That goes for food as well. You're completely naked, just as your name implies.
Great. Now I see why you asked me if I like snakes. I suppose calling me Snake was your idea of a joke, too.
No. There's a good reason for that. I'll tell you later when the time is right.
Gotcha. Getting back to the subject, how exactly am I supposed to feed myself?
You've been issued a knife and a tranquilizer gun. Use them to hunt for food. You'll also find some medical supplies in your backpack.
Yeah, about the backpack. I lost it in a tree on the way down.
I see. Well, you'd better go back and get it then. You know where it is?
No problem. I can see it from here. It's stuck on a branch.
To climb a tree, stand in front of a tree that's covered in ivy and press the action button. I'll be monitoring your progress over the radio. We can't risk violating Soviet airspace, but I'll be in the gunship. My frequency is 140.85. I'll give you a call if I need to talk to you. If you need to talk to me, use the send function. Okay, Snake, go get your backpack.
Alright, finally some gameplay after 18 minutes. One thing I want to point out, I really think that this right here looks a lot better in this game also. And the original Metal Gear Solid 3 kind of just looked like a big sea of green. This game was the first to implement, and actually the only one to implement, killing animals for food to refill your stamina. Well, if there was a snake over here, I'd be able to kill it with my knife. Or a frog, that works. If you play this game, if you play Metal Gear Solid 4, it's very hard to get used to the fact that he doesn't crawl. I mean, he crawls, he can't walk while crouching. Anyways, at this point, I'm not going to collect anything, because something's going to happen, and all my stuff's going to go away anyway. So I really don't see any point in collecting anything, honestly. Let's see.